The wind scraped the shattered windows of the railcar as Alban Creel stepped onto the frozen platform at Carroway station. His breath hung briefly before him, then vanished, as if the town itself refused to acknowledge it. Snow spiraled listlessly around warped signposts and buildings that sagged under the weight of disrepair. It was December 18th, 1934, and Carroway wore its decay like a funeral shroud no one dared lift. Alban's greatcoat still bore the bronze medals from Verdun and Somme, dulled but present. The years after the war had not been kind to him. Fame had become a hunger unsated by battlefield commendations or half-whispered tales of valor. No, Alban had come to Carroway for a greater prize, one that would defy the obscurity aging soldiers were destined to rot in. Rumors had trailed through the back alleys of Paris, across moldy library margins in Boston, and finally to this crumbling corner of Massachusetts. Whispers told of an artifact beneath Carroway's derelict library, some fossilized thing, older than time, forbidden by shape and size, the kind of find that made legacies, or ended them. He pulled his notebook from his inner coat pocket, flipping to the page marked Carroway, December 18, Apollyon Bell. Scrawled beneath were testimonies gathered from vagabond scholars and drunken occultists, all referencing a bell that tolled where no tower stood. It had begun again last week, they said, once at dawn, then again at dusk. No one in the town dared speak of it aloud. Shoving the book away, Alban strode through the main street. Shops sat shuttered, even in daylight. Signs weathered blank. A hunched figure watched him from behind a curtain in a window above the apothecary. Children's laughter echoed far too faintly, like a memory misremembered. Malevolence did not announce itself with horns or thunder here. It watched. It waited. The library was just as he'd pictured, perched atop a slope of dead grass, its columns bent inward like the arthritic limbs of something half-buried and reluctant to rise. Ivy clutched at it like it wanted to hold the building underground. Alban squinted up at the stone frieze above the double doors, chipped and pitted, but still declaring the truth. Established 1792. Closed since 1906. He found the front doors unexpectedly unlocked and eased them open with a wooden groan. Inside, the temperature dropped instantly, and dust floated like suspended ash. Rows of buckled shelves leaned inward, and a woman's laugh, sharp, too mechanical, rose from somewhere deep past the reference section. Alban froze, but the sound did not return. Clutching the flashlight tighter, he moved past collapsed stacks and toppled busts, toward what he knew lay beneath. Maps had shown a sublevel, sealed for decades, perhaps centuries. His hands trembled as he found the trapdoor to the basement, hidden beneath an overturned reading table. But just as he bent to pry it open, a chime split the silence, a low, resonant toll from no discernible source. The bell. The very one that drew him here. It did not echo. It lingered. Alban swallowed. He told himself this sound meant he was close to what he sought. Fame. Legacy. Triumph. He did not yet realize that the toll was not a welcome. It was a warning. Alban Creel stood at the rotted threshold of Carroway Library's cellar door, its rusting padlock already severed by his trembling hands an hour past under cloak of fog. What he had expected to find beneath the crumbling stone building was a relic. A key to fame, perhaps a dusty idol or an ancient weapon. What he did find was older, colder. As he descended the tight spiral staircase, lantern in hand, the air thickened. The mortar sweated brine. Sigils he could not recognize were etched long into the stone walls, their curves resembling predatory fins and spirals that turned his stomach even as they fascinated him. The moment Alban crossed the final step, the temperature fell sharply, and the lantern flickered blue. The basement opened into a vaulted chamber long hidden behind rotted shelving. In the center of the chamber rested an oblong slab of black stone, slick with moisture, gnarled with twisting, fossilized limbs and half-formed jaws. Embedded in the center was the fossil, an impossible chimeric fusion of reptilian vertebrae, concentric compound eyes like a fly's, and ridged fins traced with baroque markings no natural beast could possess. He knelt, brushing away clinging dust. The stone was warm, pulsing, as if a heart, long dead or never truly alive, resided within. The flickering light warped the fossil's silhouette, seeming to inscribe it with motion it did not have, coils slithering without cause, fangs parting on a breathless scream. Then the visions began. The library dissolved in a wash of violet static. Alban's consciousness surged beyond the cellar ceiling, upward into a sky that wasn't a sky at all, but a dome of brittle nothingness shuddering with strain. Above it, something vast stirred, massive tendrils of obsidian flame reaching silently, searching. Rifts opened between constellations, and through them oozed monstrosities of cyclopean biology. Amalgamations of human features and amphibious deformities, their mouths agape in exultation of some preternatural liturgy. Alban stumbled backward, hand outstretched toward the fossil, even as his mind shrieked from the contact. It pulsed faster now, as if aware. A beat spoke inside his skull. "Remember me before the name is yours." He tried to flee, but already the visions clung. The sky above Carroway, real, normal, wavered at the edges, like wax softening. And far above, just hidden in the clouds, a spiral trace of something unnatural gleamed with quiet menace. In his small rented room that night, Alban scribbled the fossil's outline again and again into his notebook. He could not stop. Each attempt grew more grotesque, more exact, and more compelling. Outside, the phantom bell tolled twice, its resonance sad and slow, as if mourning something not yet dead. But Alban was not afraid. Not anymore. He was close. He smiled to no one. The fossil was only the beginning. Tomorrow he would return. Tomorrow he would find who had carved it. Brushstrokes of the Damned. A sliver of moonlight refracted through the cracked panes of the subterranean library corridor, illuminating the mold-furred floor as Alban Creel crept further into the odor of rot and wet stone. Cradling the fossil, now faintly throbbing, he followed a trail of viscous smears that led through a breach in the basement wall, where impossibly cold air seeped outward like breath from a tomb. Beyond the breach, silence gave way to the wet scrape of bristles on canvas. The chamber Alban entered was cavernous and irregular, more grotto than room. Fungus clung to stalactites like dripping candles, and easels covered in canvas formed a half-circle around a pool of brackish water. The smell was staggering, a mix of salt rot, amphibian skin, and ancient oil paints. At the center, hunched and croaking as it worked, was a horror pulled from myth and miasma. The artist. Its skin was a fluctuating green-black with mucus-like sheen, and it had hands too long, tipped with nails stained from relentless pigment. A frayed French smock hung loose on its wiry amphibious frame, splattered with colors so wrong They rearranged Alban's understanding of Hugh. Almond eyes blinked sideways, and its wet mouth peeled into a grin. "I waited for you," the creature rasped, placing a final stroke onto the canvas before it. Alban's eyes fell upon the painting, a twisted draft of Carroway drowning beneath an eye-riddled sky. In the center stood a man crowned by fossil limbs. "You saw me?" Alban whispered, jaw tightening. "You will be seen by everything that watches from the rift." The artist tilted its head to an unnatural angle. "The fossil is not yours. It belongs to them, and yet they allow you to carry it. You are to be his next prophet." Alban's fingers clenched, trembling around the fossil. "I came here to find something no man has ever found, something to name me forever." The artist gurgled approvingly and slithered closer on jointless limbs. "Then you must offer something no man would give. The rift requires a tribute, a mind smeared across dimensions, a soul painted onto the curtain of reason." It gestured toward a corner where a man-shaped form sprawled, half-painted, half-rotted, its face an expression of wide-eyed agony and mouth ever screaming. "Each prophet begins as pigment," the artist crooned, dipping fingers into a bone cup laden with thick red. Alban recoiled but felt the fossil flare with warmth, whispering hungry affirmations into his thoughts. Fame, eternity, legacy. All just one stroke away. "I won't be forgotten," he muttered. "Then paint," the thing said. It presented a new canvas, pristine and risen from the shadows like an altar. Beside it lay brushes made from finger bones. "I need only your choice," the artist declared. All around the grotto, the other paintings began to shift, showing vistas of writhing stars and screaming soil. Alban took a brush, the fossil in his other hand, trembling like a heart. As he stepped to the canvas, something cried through the chasm above them, the sound of a great bell, subterranean yet loud enough to crack marrow. Alban began to paint. Behind him, the artist giggled and wept with joy. The rift, it murmured, would soon remember his name. Fog gripped the twisted husks of Carroway's buildings like desperate fingers, and at the heart of it stood Alban Creel, face grimy with soot and glee. He dragged the fossil, now grown darker and disturbingly supple, through the cobbled square, toward a circle of faded stones the artist had called the mouth. The shadows curled away from him in reverence or fear. Behind him, the amphibious artist loomed, its eyes like milky pools swirling with envy and satisfaction. Alban's boots left wet, red prints as he reached the circle's center. The ritual had been simple in instruction, obscene in execution. Paint the fossil with blood from the hands of someone who still dreamed of normalcy. The vagrant from the library's steps had sufficed. Alban hadn't hesitated. He lifted the fossil high. In his mind, words not his own snapped and buzzed, forming truths that shattered pretense. "This is your mark. Let the rift bear your name. Let eternity recoil." With a cry sharpened by both triumph and gut-deep terror, Alban hurled the fossil into the center of the stones. The square screamed, not with voices, but with the buildings themselves. The brickwork moaned, fissured, and bled ink-thick fluid. The sky above convulsed like torn skin struggling to heal. Then it tore open. The rift, vast, glistening, and repulsive, peeled reality back like meat from bone. Oceans hung in it sideways. Stars blinked knowingly, their deaths echoing backward in time. Tentacled continents drifted past, whispering names that stitched themselves into the minds of children, yet unborn. Carroway, all of it, from its shuttered barbershop to the husk of the church, was drawn slowly upward, like dust in reverse gravity, toward the crimson wound. The artist began to sob, gurgling panic at what had been truly invoked. Alban turned to him, now gaunt and cracking at the edges, flesh shimmering as if it yearned to join the impossible geometry above. "You said they'd remember me," Alban spat. "You said I'd be eternal." The artist choked on laughter. "You will, eternally in nightmares. Your name a curse for those who look too far." Alban's smile cracked, then shattered. His skin began to peel, but not from fire, from memory, his own history unraveling, replaced by symbols that didn't belong in any language. As his legs dissolved into a spiral of color not found in spectra, he stood upright, howling in both ecstasy and agony. From the rift, a single eye blinked, miles across, and yet focused keenly on him. The phantom bell tolled, final, deafening, and then silence. The sky sealed, the rift gone. Only shreds remained, in the rhythm of waves on distant shores, on canvases found with colors never mixed by mortal hand, in the murals that whispered in sleep to those too young to understand. No record of Carroway remained in maps, but occasionally, in the minds of those who dream too deeply, a name emerges, etched beneath the surface like fossil in stone. Alban Creel, the man who traded sanity for a louder immortality.